This show is brought to you by countless hours and long days spent hustling in real estate.
Live from beautiful Los Angeles, California. A million ways to get in.
Holding a professional record of 444 wins and no losses. Standing 10 feet tall and heavy in the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the reigning, defending, undisputed champion of real estate entertainment. A million ways to get it.
Thank you, Bruce. Bruce Buffer, that is. For those of you who don't know, I'm a giant UFC fan, and Bruce Buffer is the announcer for all of the UFC fights and has been for as long as I can remember, which is close to 20 years. This week on my plate, I have 2 new listings hitting the market. One of them is a single family in Arcadia. It's a 4-bedroom, 1-bath. Anyone who flips knows how much stress it can be tying up the last part of a flip. So kind of been doing that for the last week and got it done and getting ready to list the property. You guys should check it out if you're in the area. It's 2802 Foss Avenue in Arcadia. Also hitting the market in about 6-7 days. We're going to have a 1-bedroom condo in Engelwood. Really small. It's like 750 square feet, but we redid everything. So anybody who's got a first-time home buyer in mind, this would be a great property for them to get in and own some property. We're going to be asking $220,000 for that one, so might be some of the cheapest property in Los Angeles. I kind of ran into some website issues on one of my websites, lacashbuyer.com. I'm getting ready to do some paid advertising on it, and my marketing team, who I'm bringing on board, took a look at it and said this website is not in any shape to be marketed because we can't get key performance indicators from it. We couldn't set up the analytics in the way that we needed to properly gauge how effective our marketing dollars were being spent. So for the last few days, I've been rebuilding the heck out of that website. For those of you that have checked it out in the past, we're going to be having a new look in about a day and a half from today. So by the time this episode airs, we're going to have a new website. You guys ought to check it out, lacashbuyer.com. It's a great example of calls to action and integrating all kinds of different things into a website that can help you capture data from sellers, if that's what you do for a living. Let's see what else happened in the last few days. Oh, I bought a new car. I don't know what it is, but I think I've gotten lucky. So my neighbor a few doors down sold me a 1987 Jeep Grand Wagoneer. It's basically the original Woody. It's the Jeep Grand Cherokee before they started calling it that. It's a big V8 full-size Jeep, 4-wheel drive, steel body, Woody sides. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to fixing that up. And I like hunting. You guys may or may not know. And if you don't know, you're definitely going to find out. I like hunting. It's one of the things I like to do with a bow, and that requires getting to places that are remote. So I needed a 4-wheel drive vehicle. Saw this one, had a great opportunity to get it for a good price, and I bought it. Figure I know how to flip things, so just take the same mentality that I use on houses and take it to the car. Funny actually, because that's the second car that I've bought in the last probably 3 months, and they're both older than I am. I'm not a huge car buff or anything like that. I just had a couple opportunities come up that I had to jump on. One of them was the Jeep. The other one is the classic truck. I'm sure you guys have seen that in the photos and the ad and the backgrounds, but yeah, I jumped on that classic truck, man. And what allowed me to do that was I got sideswiped by a semi, and I was driving a Prius, and I love it. I loved the Prius, but obviously it was lacking in the style department. So when I got compensated really nicely by insurance for the Prius, I turned right around and bought that truck. I ran into that truck randomly at the smog check when I was getting my girlfriend's car smog checked. I had the mechanic call the owner, and the owner came down, and I bought the truck right then and there. Enough about me. Let's get on with the show. Want to recap last week really quickly before we start getting into the next episode and this week's features. Last week's show guest was Sean Calcagnie. Sean Calcagnie is one of my good friends. We got a project going on right now together. Had a really good interview with him, and it was really insightful. It was good to hear how fast he was able to rise in the real estate ranks and kind of hear how he was able to do it. The sound quality on the interview, I want to apologize for it. Yeah, that was before I had gotten this new mic and brought in my audio engineer, Anthony, on to help me, keep a higher quality of sound. And so my apologies on the lower sound quality on that, but the content is still there and the content is still great. My biggest takeaway from it, and what I think you guys should remember, is with hard work and timing, there can be an explosive career boost. If you are working hard and a good opportunity comes, or a good window of opportunity presents itself, and you jump in that window, who's telling what the ceiling can be? And Sean's a great example of that. If you listen to this interview, he goes from basically working with a hard money lender to building homes in a matter of years. And the way he did it is really interesting. And he didn't take any shortcuts, but he did jump on some great opportunities and trust himself. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from it. And that's what I'd like you guys to remember about the show. I'd also like to hear what you thought about the episode. If you have questions for the guest that I didn't ask him, you can reach out to him directly, or you can reach out to us and we'll make sure we ask him and get the answer back to you. How you can reach us is info@millionwayspodcast.com. This week's Titan tool is ASANA. ASANA is a project management tool that can easily sync with cloud storage services like Dropbox and Google Drive, and it can also link with team members in different projects and assign tasks throughout those different projects. Along with that, it can help you manage deadlines throughout an array of projects and help you keep members of your team accountable. Personally, I use ASANA for large projects that I'm undertaking right now. For like building a website, I'll make a list of what needs to be done, and then I'll break it up into smaller sections and tasks and assign those tasks and give myself deadlines on it. I don't use it much in the day-to-day because a lot of my stuff is automated and I've spent a lot of time to automate a lot of what I do. So in the day-to-day, I don't use it too much. I use it when I'm undertaking a huge task, like bringing on an employee, rebuilding a website, marketing to a new sector that I want to touch, or for realtors, let's say, how you're going to go from Brea to Fullerton and, what your plan's going to be, what the steps you need to take. Basically, it helps you break down big projects into small tasks, give yourself a deadline to get them done so that you can stay on task and get things done. If you want to check out how I use it, I'll be presenting a few quick screenshots on our social media pages, so check those out. Be sure to give us some positive feedback. More folks can hear about the show if they know about it, and your positive reviews help them hear about it and help our placement on the respective search engines. There's a team of folks who spend time every week to get this show out to you, so if you enjoy it, please take a second and give some positive feedback. It really helps us out. Also, don't forget the awesome contest we have underway. It's a giveaway for an Audio-Technica studio microphone and a PV USB mixer that anyone with a computer can use to record music, their own podcast, voiceovers, or any sort of marketing or entertainment content that you see fit. After 5 episodes, I will be sending one winner the podcast starter kit, and that winner will be selected from users who leave a positive review on iTunes and who are also following us on Instagram and Snapchat @RealEstatePodcast. We love interacting with all of you guys on both of those fronts, so make sure you add us on social media, and our handle is @RealEstatePodcast. Our website is updated with a ton of new content weekly, and that is the best place to find new episode segments on their own, videos, exclusive subscription episodes, and other content that you can only find online. For anything and everything else, you can always send us an email, info@millionwayspodcast. Be sure you stick around after the interview for our Realtor of the Week and our title tip. This week's guest is Erik DeArkland. Erik DeArkland is sort of a journeyman. He's been in real estate for over a decade now, and he's kind of done it all, from property management to building to flipping, commercial management. It's really interesting how he's been able to carve out a path in real estate, keep that role that he's given himself, constantly changing and ebbing and flowing with the market. So it's really been interesting to hear what he's been able to do to keep busy and also give himself some freedom with work. Currently, what he's doing is repurposing and flipping commercial buildings and then leasing them out and managing them himself. He's doing this all up in Ventura County, but before that, he was flipping multifamily and also building single-family homes all throughout LA and Ventura County. I met him in college. We were part of the same fraternity. We had quite a few good times together, and we still hang out. We get to snowboard, surf, golf, do all that fun stuff. So it was good to sit down, get with him, press record, and really kind of get the timeline of how he started in real estate to how he got to where he is now. I think in the interview, it's pivotal to listen for how he's been able to work with his family and use his family members as employees. And when I say use, I don't mean use and throw away, but be able to keep it in the family is what I mean. How he's been able to, instead of hiring out, hiring in, bringing his family members into he and his father's operation and keeping it more and more tight-knit while keeping it productive and still growing the business. Joining us on this episode, we have Erik DeArkland, broker, investor, snowboarder, golfer, traveler, etc. He and I go back about 7 years to USC. We went to college together. We were in the same fraternity. As long as I've known Erick, he's been involved in real estate. So I wanted to make sure that I got him on the show to explain to you guys sort of how he's been able to stay in the industry. As we all know, it's an ever-changing landscape, so you got to kind of stay on your toes. So I wanted to bring him on and talk to him about how he's been able to do that and have a ton of success with it. He's from Santa Barbara initially, which is just north of Los Angeles, a couple of hours. He works with his family, his father and a few of his siblings, so he's got a nice little operation going there. If you have any questions or need clarification on a discussed topic, you can always send us an email at info@millionwayspodcast. If you enjoy the show, or you enjoy what Erick had to say, let everybody else know. Give us a 5-star review, leave us a little comment, hit the subscribe button. All of the above really helps spread the good word about the show and help other new listeners find the content. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Real Estate Podcast. It was really a pleasure to have Erick on the show. As I said, we've been friends for quite a while, often discussing business, but it's a great opportunity to have him on and provide some information to you listeners about maybe how you can get involved with your family, how you can get your family involved, and what steps you can take to stay ahead of the competition. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of A Million Ways to Get It. This is your host, Ryan. Joining us this episode, we have real estate investor Erik DeArkland. How you doing today, Erick?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. I got my mobile set up today, so I'm out in Century City. Normally, I'm closer to downtown, but today I'm on the west side. So if there's a little bit of audio quality difference for the listeners, excuse me. I got my mobile set up. So I'm in Century City. Where are you talking from today, Erick?
I'm in Marina Del Rey. My home office. Work from home for the most part.
Cool, man. So you live on the west side?
Yes.
How long have you lived out that way?
I moved out here in middle of 2011, so about 5 years.
Did you that was right after school? Did you graduate right after in 2011?
Yeah, I graduated May 2011, and then actually moved up to San Jose for a little bit for about 6 months, and then I moved back down to LA.
So for the listeners, Erick and I went to school together. He and I went to USC, and we were both in this fraternity, Phi Kappa Psi. So that's how we met. That was before real estate was really even a thought for me, but it was actually pretty full-time job for him on top of school. So he's been in it for a while, and I kind of been watching from afar. And the last few years, we've got a little closer and talking about how he goes about doing his business and stuff. So I figure let's bring him on the show and talk about it. But yeah, for the listeners, he and I met at USC close to a decade ago now, huh?
Yeah, I think it was probably about 10 years ago.
So why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners where you're from originally? It's SoCal, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Santa Barbara. Yeah, always been in Southern California. Went to LMU for a year and then transferred to USC. And then, did a short little stint up north and then moved back down to LA. Got to stay by the water.
How was the transfer? Was it hard to get everything transferred over from LMU to USC?
For the most part, not really. I ended up taking a few classes again. I think I took calculus once in high school, once at LMU, and then once at USC. So that class would not transfer. So there was a few things that got redundant, but for the most part, it was pretty simple.
Cool. What did you study when you were at USC? Was it PPD?
No, I did a double major in accounting and business.
Okay. And then you're just normal graduation, normal track, 4 years?
Well, I did 1 year at LMU and then I did 4 years at USC. So it took me 5 years, but I justify it with a double major.
Right, definitely. And I mean, like I said, while you were at USC, you were working like damn near 40 hours a week for the last 2 years, right?
I really got into it my last semester.
Explain to everybody what you were doing. All I remember is that you had 2 giant monitors and you were up at like 5:30 in the morning. So go ahead and tell everybody the rest from there.
Well, my family has always been in real estate, and my senior year my dad and sister got into foreclosed homes and buying those at the trustee sales. So, I mean, I was really interested in it and wanted to jump in as soon as I could. So the way that all works is, I mean, you get a list of properties that are scheduled for sale. For the most part, a lot of them get postponed or canceled. So you'd have to go through and be checking with the trustees if they were still scheduled for sale. So that's kind of how I got involved my senior year. I was checking the list and calling trustees and seeing if they're still scheduled, and if they were scheduled, if they had an opening bid, and just relaying the message to the bidder that would be going to the auction.
Right. So that was about 5 or 6 years ago, 2010, 11, right?
Yeah.
Do you continue to do that? Do you still do that? Or do you feel that's kind of tapered off?
It kind of fizzled out. We hit it pretty hard the second half of 2010 and then to about 2013. In 2012, the whole landscape kind of changed because these hedge funds came in and they were buying up homes to rent, and they're building these huge portfolios of single family rentals. Our strategy was to buy them, fix them up, and sell them. So we needed to have, a certain amount of equity in it when we bought it. And you're competing with people that are not really worried about buying it with instant equity in it. They were more looking at, okay, homes are so cheap now, in 5 or 10 years, we'll sell them. So even if we're paying, market price for them, we're still okay. So they came in, I mean, they had extremely deep pockets and they were just bullying everyone.
So basically these large funds would send a few representatives to the auction and they would just clean up with basically no margin on houses.
Yeah, I saw one group. The big one was Blackstone Group, and they were buying a lot in LA in 2000. They started in 2012, and I swear they must have had the green light. If anyone's bidding on a property, just make sure you buy it. Like, I don't care. Just don't let anyone else compete. And I saw them buy about 15 houses one morning.
Oh.
It's frustrating because it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of, we'd be lucky if we got a house a week, and every day you're going and you're grinding out, you have drivers going to like 15, 20 houses each morning, and then you're bidding on them, and it just, months would go by where we wouldn't get a house, and it was just like, okay, it's probably time to shift gears here.
So real quick, before we talk about how you shifted gears, tell me who we is. You keep saying we. I know your sister and your dad. Are you still working with them? Is that your whole team?
Yeah. So it's the three of us. My younger sister joined us last year, and then we have 2 non-family members involved as well. One's our accountant, and one's our another property manager.
Cool. So you got 16 members total?
Correct.
Nice. And do you guys have a website or anything like that, or you guys keep it pretty low key, huh?
We keep it pretty low key. We have a website for our property management division, so tenants can pay rent online and submit maintenance requests.
Okay.
But for the most part, we try to stay under the radar.
Okay. Well, at the end, we'll make sure we give your personal contact information or a good email to reach you in case anybody has any questions for you about, how you personally did it. What did you kind of transition to when that 2012 shift happened that we were talking about that made it really hard to acquire homes at the auctions?
Well, originally we focused just in the San Fernando Valley and all the way from, I would say, West Hills to Burbank, and that was our region. And when things started getting extremely competitive, we just couldn't get the houses we wanted. So we expanded our area a little bit, and we went into like Glendale, Eagle Rock, a little bit more east. And that was probably a mistake because we started spreading ourselves out. We ended up getting a few houses, but it was really tough to manage because it was like one house way on the east side and another house on the way west. And I mean, it's difficult if you don't have the volume in terms of the construction and then checking up on the properties. That was probably a year transition. It was a tough year. And then we shifted to...
if you weren't going to the auctions anymore, how were you getting those houses?
We were still going to the auction. We were still going...
but you just expanded your area from the SFV.
Yes, we expanded our area, and exactly.
Okay.
And it took a while to transition out of it. And then we started looking for some like small apartments and commercial stuff. We do a lot of business up in Ventura, so we started focusing on downtown Ventura and then select areas in LA for apartments.
Was that kind of your idea with your accounting background? You said, okay, we can do something else that can bring in some dough. So you said, let's do multifamily?
Yeah, I think I like multifamily in the sense that it's a little bit more calculated.
Mm-hmm.
the value is based off of income, and it's not based off of like a comparable property that sold down the street.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can, to some extent, it's a little bit more predictable. Whereas, you know, the housing market could turn or something could happen, and it's not based off any like scientific data of like numbers. It's more of just like, how bad does somebody want to buy a house? So I like that aspect of it. It was a little bit more sophisticated and calculated, and I definitely feel more comfortable in that regard than buying single family homes now.
Right. So, okay. So the shift happened. So you said, okay, we expanded our single family buying, and that was hard. We spread ourselves too thin. Let's change gears and let's do some multifamily close to home in an area that we know. We as a team and family, obviously everybody's from there. You guys know the area really well. How was it? Were you nervous? As like, obviously you had it as your career, and you're saying, okay, single family homes aren't working anymore. What are we going to do at that point? Were you nervous, or did you have full confidence to say, okay, we're going to come up with another plan. We're good. We got this.
I mean, change is always a little weird, and it was definitely a difficult transition. The apartments I felt really comfortable with, and we started getting into commercial office, and that was a little bit more uneasy. Yeah, I feel that it's more difficult to lease apartments. You know, you're always going to be able to find someone to move into your space. It's just a function of price.
Right. So you're a little nervous, but you made it happen. You said, okay.
Yeah.
Change is always uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So what year was that when you started doing the multis up in Ventura?
Probably 2013 to 2014.
And then at that point, you weren't flipping them; you were buying and holding.
Exactly. I mean, we kind of had the intent that, okay, we'll buy some apartments. What we look for was apartments that had, you know, a lot of upside in them. It's poorly managed. The rents are low. So our plan would be, we'll buy them. As the tenants turn, we'll fix them up. And then once we get rents to a certain point, we'll make a decision if we're going to refinance it or sell it.
Because there's no rent control in the area?
In Ventura, there's no rent control.
No rent control. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, in Ventura, essentially, you could buy a place and then give everyone notice and then have a vacant building, go in, fix it up, get the rents up, and then sell it or refinance it and just hold on to it. For the most part, I think we have or at least I do, have a pretty long-term view of real estate, and prefer to hold stuff.
So that was 2000, you said 13, 14?
Exactly, yeah.
Is that what you're still doing now, 2 years later?
Yeah, we're still doing that. We're shifting probably more so to commercial office, and I mean, we'll still buy. I mean, if a good house came up, we would still buy it, fix it up, and sell it. But just haven't really put too much energy into that. But yeah, I would say our main focus now is commercial office and apartments.
So for the commercial space, do you use the same model that you do for the apartments, which is come in, make it nicer, and then obviously rent it out for more?
I mean, it's a little bit more tricky because you're going to have a tenant that's going to come in and they're going to spend money on tenant improvements.
Right.
So there's a fine line between, okay, let's get this appealing enough to attract a tenant, but let's not do too much work to where it's not going to fit their needs and they're going to end up tearing it out anyways. So we kind of, our thought is, okay, we'll get a commercial building. Let's get a really good shell and let them come in and, you know, kind of envision what they want to do. And we'll work with them on like a tenant improvement allowance to build it to suit.
Dang. So at this point, you know how to acquire single family, multifamily, and commercial space. But beyond that, you're managing, obviously, the multifamily units and the commercial space. So you had to learn along the way how to, you know, properly manage rentals, both residential and commercial, right?
Yes. And my sister's the property manager, so she really takes the lead on that.
Big sis or little sis?
Older sister.
Okay.
And yeah, but the apartments are pretty simple. I mean, you'll get maintenance requests here and there, but the commercial space gets a little bit more tricky because the leases are more complicated and they'll be triple nets. So you have to do CAM reconciliations and there's a lot more intricacies to the lease and who's responsible for what.
And that's your responsibility?
Yeah, that's the property manager's responsibility.
Okay. I mean, but on your team, who's in charge of, making sure that the leases are in order and basically the commercial leasing agent for your guys' in-house brokerage? Is it you or your sis, or do you outsource that?
Me and my dad do most of the leasing on our behalf. So they'll usually be a tenant rep. So we'll be going back and forth with him, and we'll let the attorneys like duke out all the legalese type of stuff. But once we have the lease signed, we'll do like a lease abstract that kind of just summarizes it, so we don't have to go through all like the 60-page document to find stuff.
So at this point, is your dad pretty involved in the operation, or do you and the siblings pretty much run the ship?
He's pretty involved with the commercial side of it. Me and my sisters are more of the apartments, and we have our own LLC that we created that we're acquiring stuff through. So it's nice because we have a property management division and a construction division, so we kind of all share those resources, and then everyone's just buying stuff and using the property management and the construction company to do the work on their stuff.
So now that you guys are in the commercial space, both obviously multi-unit residential and, like as we said, industrial or commercial or both, how do you get your leads? How do you get opportunities to buy these places? Is it just word of mouth? Are you paying any marketing fees? Do you cold call? How does it go down?
For the apartments, we bought one through Loopnet and one through MLS, and then a few through just brokers we know in the area.
Cool.
And
so just hard work, basically.
Yeah, I guess we have a pretty good network of brokers in Ventura. So if something comes up or they know of something, they'll pass it along to us. So, I mean, one thing that's nice about being in a central market or just focus on a specific area, you'll get to know the brokers, and they'll know that you're serious and that you're a buyer. And when something comes up, they'll give you a shot at it. We don't really have as many connections like that in LA. So for the most part, we're just keeping an eye on MLS and Loopnet.
Cool. Why don't you go over just a couple things that you picked up when you were acquiring a bunch of residential properties that maybe helped you win in a battle, like say a bid war or something like that? Something that you did on your contracts. Is there anything that comes to mind that maybe you separated you from other buyers when the competition was thick?
Well, most of there was nothing really, probably. Well, when you're buying at the trustee sale, you're buying it sight unseen. It's just everyone has the same offer. It's just cash. And it's just the deal's closed as soon as you get it over. We occasionally would buy stuff through MLS. Whenever there was a good deal, we would just go to the listing agent and say, "Hey, you're going to rep us as well," because then everyone acts like they're going to be ethical and they don't really care about getting the double side, but they do. And I mean, we've had situations where they'll say, "Hey, you need to, this is what the highest offer is. If you come over like $5,000, it's all yours." So I think the biggest advice I could give is if there's a really good deal that you're going after, have the listing agent rep you. Double-ended
if they're willing to.
Yeah.
And most times they'll say no, but no means yes sometimes.
I rarely get a no on that.
Right. So are you and your sis both brokers at this point, or is she the broker and you're agent?
She's a broker. I'm not an agent. No. I was an agent in Nevada because we were doing some stuff there for a while, and I never got my California license.
Oh, by the way, let's talk about that. When you say Nevada, are you talking about the cabins you got? Not little, but the cabins you guys did?
No, it's more like Reno.
Okay. Tell the listeners a little bit about that those cabins you guys have right there at the base of what lodge is that? Boulder or Stagecoach?
Stagecoach. Yeah, so my family bought some lots back. It's probably 2000, and they built a house on one of them, and we still have the lots for the other. I think there's 4 other lots we have. So I mean, we may develop them. I'm not sure what the plan is. It's just that's not on our radar at the moment.
Not a priority at this time.
Yeah.
But the houses you did build, I mean, breathtaking. If you guys have ever been to Stagecoach, they're the ski outs on the way down to the lift in the lodge. I'm like, 4,000 to 7,000 square feet. Unbelievable views.
Right around there. There's a few massive ones up there.
Yeah. Unbelievable, man. So you won't be talking to me too much on this because I don't deal like I said, too much with commercial leases, but we do have some commercial listeners. Why don't you talk about maybe some things on those lease contracts that come up or that did come up that you had to learn to deal with, or some tips or tricks that may help somebody that's just getting started in it or trying to acquire their first commercial property themselves?
Yeah, well, one thing that comes to mind, we actually had a tenant that was a commercial tenant, and they were going to take a good amount of space from us. And financially, they weren't that sound. So we ended up getting a guarantee from, they had a parent company. And once they started construction, they contracted with the general contractor directly. And they ended up defaulting on their construction contract. And then walking away from the whole project. And the tenant filed bankruptcy, but since we had the guarantee, we can go after the parent company. So, I mean, it's definitely my advice is, make sure you underwrite the tenant that you're going to have, because a lot of these little startups or commercial tenants are here today, gone tomorrow. I would get a guarantee if possible. Either a personal guarantee, or if there's a parent company or something like that, try to do that.
That's a really good tip. Really good tip. Speaking of tips, you've been in the game for quite a while, like we're talking almost a decade now. Done a lot of different things, from acquisitions to, managing commercial leases to managing construction on spaces. What are some things that you wish you knew? Maybe just two or three, maybe one tidbit of advice that you wish you knew when you were just getting started in it, that maybe would have saved you some time, energy, or money?
So when we were doing the houses, we would do all the construction in house. We would have about 3 or 4 guys that would go in that were just like, what's the phrase? Jack of all trades, master of none. So I mean, they were good at it. They could do pretty much anything, but they weren't specialized in anything, which was fine. And we probably kept the rate down pretty well. But once we transitioned to the commercial and the larger projects, we kept trying to do that and do a lot of stuff in-house. And it was a headache. I mean, you're coordinating with tenants, and all the systems are intertwined. So one thing that, I mean, we took a while to learn, but it's, when you get into these bigger projects, you got to hire a GC that knows what they're doing and that can crank it out. And you just get, specialized subcontractors to do all the work. I mean, you think it's going to cost more, but I think in the long run, it's going to save you time, money, and energy.
And this is both for residential and commercial, so that's pretty universal throughout real estate, you'd say?
I think once you reach once the project's a certain size, you got to go with a bigger company. But I mean, if you're doing a house here and there, you got to save every dollar you can. And I mean, it makes sense to keep it in house, and you don't have any coordination, or none of the systems are intertwined, so it's a lot easier.
What do you think? Obviously, you've been able to have pretty fair amount of success in all aspects of real estate, even in different states, like you mentioned, Nevada. What do you think is going to happen here with the real estate market in the next 2-3 years? Do you have any sort of idea what could be happening?
I think housing's pretty solid. I mean, I know home prices have gone up a lot, but the fundamentals there are pretty good, just with like supply and demand economics. I mean, there just isn't enough supply for the demand. During that like 2008 to 2014 period, home starts were like slashed in like half or more. So there just hasn't been any construction to fill it, and the population's been increasing. So I think single family homes will be good. I think apartments will be good for a good amount of time. I know there's a lot of new construction coming up, and a lot of new units are going to hit the market. But it should be interesting what happens when interest rates go up. I mean, I'm sure that will have a upward pressure on cap rates. So, I mean, I'm pretty optimistic. I think it will be fine for the next 12, 18 months, but probably start teetering off there.
And the immediate plan is to kind of stay here around Southern California, Ventura, down to LA, and then dabble a little bit in Reno?
Yeah, exactly. We like being central, have most of our properties in one area, and we can manage them ourselves, and it's a lot easier management wise.
And then on a personal level, are you spending a lot of time in Tahoe, or you spending most of your time Ventura South?
I'm going up to Tahoe for Christmas. Hopefully the snow's good.
Man,
Last
I'm hoping
year
the
was.
snow's good.
I know. Did you go up last year?
I did. I got out for half of one day, and I felt great. I got my fix, I guess, but I got out.
Yeah, I got a few good days in last year, but
yeah, that one half day I got to go through Mott. I got like a dozen laps through Mott. I said, well, a lot of people wait all season for that, so I'll call that pretty good. And then I had to scoot out and get down to my girlfriend's cabin, actually, which is right by Yosemite. So yeah, had to get in and get out quick.
Yeah, right on.
Cool, man. Well, that kind of wraps it up. You were really informative to the guests. As I said, like covered every aspect of real estate pretty much in the last decade. So thanks for, giving a bunch of your experiences and info to our listeners, man. We really appreciate you joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, let me go ahead and just give myself a plug. If you guys liked the episode, why don't you go ahead and click subscribe? Go ahead and rate us 5 stars and leave a little comment, leave some feedback. If you want to send an email, go ahead and send an email to info@millionwayspodcast.com. Eric, why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners where they can reach you, maybe a good email address. If anybody's got a question or maybe they got a deal that they want to partner up on in the Ventura or Los Angeles area.
Yes, so the best way to reach me would be email. My email is Erick, ERIK, at heedinc.com. So that's spelled HEEDINC.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Eric. We look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you for listening to another episode of A Million Ways to Get It. For questions, comments, or guest information, send an email to info@millionwayspodcast.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @realestatepodcast. The Realtor of the Week this week is Kevin STIRDIVANT. He's the founder of KASE Realty, and they're with Keller Williams in Newport Estates in Laguna Beach. He's definitely not your typical realtor. Kevin is an ex-pro skateboarder who started selling real estate over 15 years ago at the age of 19. With a team of over 45 agents and $150 million in personal real estate transactions, Kevin is undoubtedly one of the top producing agents in the infamous South Orange County real estate market. Check him out online at kaserealestate.com. That's Case with a K, realestate.com. And you can also check him out on Instagram at Kevion, Kevion. Next up, we've got Jerry with some title advice to keep that ass out of court. So listen up, take some notes, and give him your ears.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Title Talk Tuesday. My name is Jerry Wu, your host for this segment. I'm your title specialist here at with First American Title. So thankful to join you guys again for our third installment of Title Talk Tuesday. I think we were able to cover some really good ground before, and each one of these ones that I do, I'm hoping that I can either bring you, whether you're a real estate professional or if you're a home buyer, seller, or investor, some kind of insight into our industry, into the title industry and what we do, and some of the things, that services and products that we provide. So, this is our third segment. And previously, I've done an overview on what exactly is title insurance, in case you're new to the industry or you're new to real estate. And second segment, I believe we talked about reconveyances, especially reconveyances for loans and reconveyance fraud. So today I want to talk a little bit about what an interim binder is, and this particular topic really caters towards investors, people who either flip properties or, they buy properties and usually hold them for no longer than 2 to 3 years. So this may be you, or maybe you work with somebody or somebody that is interested in doing that kind of real estate investing. This is for you. And again, we're talking about what an interim binder is. So let's get started. Now, as I've previously said before, in Southern California, which is where we operate out of, the title insurance, the owner's policy of the title insurance is usually almost always paid for by the seller. Okay, so it insures the buyer of a property, but again, here it is customary that the seller pays for the buyer's title insurance. So the way the interim binder works is this. If you have a buyer, or if you're the buyer and you know you plan on purchasing this property and turning around and selling it within 2 years, okay, within 2 years, when you become the seller, okay, get an interim binder when you are buying the property, because when you sell it, it will save you a lot of money on title insurance. Because again, when it's time for you to sell it, it'll be your turn to pay for the buyer's title insurance. So before, a long time ago, we used to have these short-term policies for people, again, that own properties for a short amount of time. And when they turn around and sell it, they say, hey, I've only owned the property for a year. I don't really want to pay the full title premium for the new buyer because I've only had it for a year. We don't have that anymore. So we have an interim binder. So let me kind of go over how it works and how it can actually save the investor or the buyer, a lot of money when you become the seller and sell your home or sell their investment. So when you are buying the property, when you are in the escrow process of buying your property, let's just say, I'm going to make up some numbers here. These aren't the actual title rate, but I'm going to make it up so they're a little easier to calculate. So let's just say you buy this property for $300,000 and the title premium is $1,000. Okay. So the seller is paying that $1,000. The seller is paying the $1,000 for you, the buyer, to have that title insurance policy. If you know that within 2 years, you're going to turn around and sell this policy, you're going to tell either the title or the escrow company, hey, I want you to get me a binder. The cost of the binder is 10% of the title premium. In this case, it will be $100 because 10% of $1,000 is $100. So you, the buyer, will pay $100 for this binder. The seller will have paid $1,000 as he or she would for your title policy. Okay, now let's say, and this binder works within 2 years. So let's just say that now we're a year into it, or a year and 2 months into it, and it's time for you to sell. Okay, now naturally you're going to probably sell it for more than you purchased it for, and title premiums goes along with the purchase price. So let's just say you sell it for $400,000, and the title premium for $400,000 is, let's just say, $1,200, which is what you, now the seller, would naturally pay for. But you say, wait, nope. I have a binder, so I don't want to pay $1,200. Instead, what do you pay? You actually only pay $200 for the title premium, which is the difference between $1,200 and what you paid, and the difference in the beginning of $1,000. So in total, you've only paid $300, which is, again, the difference of that $200 difference plus the $100 that you purchased in the beginning, that 10% premium for the binder. So in total, you only spent $300 versus $1,200, which is what you would have spent. So again, this binder is usually good for 2 years. Okay, if you want to extend to a 3rd year, typically most title companies will allow you to for another 10% premium, so you probably have to pay another $100. But still, you'll still come out on top. You'll still come out saving a lot of money. Now, there is one caveat. You have to go back, when you sell the property, you have to go back to the title company that you purchased the binder from. So when you purchase the property, if you got the binder from First American Title, when you sell the property, you have to go back to First American Title to redeem that binder credit. Okay, so that's how an interim binder works. Again, for any investors out there, it's going to save you a lot of money on title fees, potentially thousands, 4 figures, which is a substantial saving in any respect. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that tip. Again, my name is Jerry Wu. I hope you enjoyed this segment of Title Talk Tuesday. I'll see you, or I'll share another tip with you guys next week.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that. You're the man. Can't wait to hear from you again next week. Remember, guys, no feedback means no improvement. No improvement, no evolution. If you don't evolve, you die. Help us evolve for you and leave us some feedback. Whether it's good or bad, just let us know. Let us know on the platform you're listening, on iTunes, SoundCloud, Libsyn, Blueberry, or send us an email, link with us on social media. Whatever you need to do that's most convenient for you, give us feedback there, and we'll be able to meet you there and respond to your feedback. Always remember, our website is the best place to find our content. It's our main hub, and it's updated weekly with a ton of fresh new audio and video. Aside from that, you can find transcripts of the shows and also information of our guests as well. All that being said, I hope you guys really enjoyed the interview this week and getting to know Erick. Take care, tuck your kids in, kiss your parents. It's a crazy